We're just live now, so.
Shall I see where,
Sure.
hey, Tina?
Sure.
Here comes Councillor Kale now.
There's Michael. Bonnie. Hello, Michael. Okay, hope you're all ready to go, live streaming.
Ready when you
All right.
are.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Welcome, everybody. And just before we get going here, there's just a couple of public announcements I would like to make. And the first one is before we start this evening, I would like to talk briefly about Canada Day. It has been a cherished community tradition on Bowen Island for years, where families gather together to enjoy some food, music, games, and fun to kick off the summer celebrations. This year, Canada Day falls during a time of change and challenge. The restrictions and guidelines around the COVID-19 pandemic are being modified frequently. And while we are all grateful for the reduced number of infections, we're also remaining cautious in our approach to community events. At the same time, Canadians across the country are acknowledging historical tragedies and inequities and trying to come to terms with the loss, grief, and trauma. On Bowen Island, as we seek to deepen our understanding and recognize the experience of all Canadians, we are encouraging a day of reflection on what it means to be a Canadian today. We look forward to hosting a community celebration later this year when we can come together in a safe fashion. In the meantime, this Canada Day, please check out the activities supported by the Bowen Island Community Recreation and take some time for a quieter, more thoughtful celebration. Thank you. The other one is, this is going to be Raj Hayre, our Chief Financial Officer. This will be his last council meeting with us. He's moving on to other efforts, and we just like to say that we certainly enjoyed his time here. And Raj has been with us for about 3 years, and I think sometimes he probably thinks like it was 23 years. It's been a very extraordinarily busy time, but he's navigating the perilous world of local government finance. But he's done a great job for us, and he's been very busy. And Raj has seen through a very busy time in our short history. And despite all the challenges, he leaves us in a very good nick, as they would say, with all our capital projects nicely under control. And he should be very confident in the time. We've certainly enjoyed his candor and his operation for the time he's been here. And on behalf of the Bowen Island municipality and the community at large, our sincerest thank you for your incredible service, Raj, and all the very best on your path forward. Thank you. All right, and now we're going to go to the revised agenda for the regular council meeting of Monday, June 28th, 2021. And the first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any issues with the agenda or any additions that they would like to put in there?
Mayor Andrew, there was just that one on table item, the
Okay.
Amended schedule to the Sophie report, which is
Okay.
8.1, the agenda.
And how about the other one? There was two parts.
No,
That one is for the closed session.
Oh, for the close, that's correct. Thank you. All right, everybody's got that, I guess.
I missed the number there.
8.1 is just
Thank
the
you.
amended schedule
Yeah.
for Sophie.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I don't see anybody's hands up there, sorry. If not, we will the agenda by consensus and we'll move on to public comments. Hope, what have you got?
First, we have Anne Frank de Ferriere regarding
Okay.
the land use bylaw amendments.
All right, thank you.
We have 2 minutes for each speaker this evening.
Okay, thank you. Hope if you look after that, that would be awesome.
Your worship and councillors, I have 2 questions about the July 12 public hearing, Bowen Island Municipality Land Use Bylaw 57, 2002. One about scheduling and the other about the venue. Why scheduling such an important public hearing immediately before an already itemized regular council meeting? After a long evening with the councillors and mayor, will the councillors and mayor remember the details of the intricate comments made by the public, let alone 6 to 8 weeks later? The third and final reading is scheduled after the summer recess. Let us take advantage of the present reopening of the sanitary restrictions stage 2 to have a real face-to-face public hearing. We are used to public hearings where the public drifts in, signs up on the speaker list, wait for their turn to speak, and if overrunning their allotted time, go back and sign up again to complete their comments and suggestions. The public hearing will only end when the speakers list is ended. So let us enjoy a real summer recess and face such an important public hearing with refreshed minds in September. Yours sincerely, Anne.
Okay, thank you, Anne.
Next, we have Owen Plowman regarding the Conservancy Lands Covenant.
Yeah, welcome, Owen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. I first want to start by giving you a thank you for those of you who were able to make it to our visit to the Cape Lands a couple of weeks ago when it was considerably cooler and a beautiful day. And we were very happy that you were able to make it. We also, on behalf of the board, I have to thank Daniel Martin, who has done an amazing job of helping us to put the covenant application in place and getting it to the point where it's able to be on the agenda tonight for your approval. And I just wanted to say a couple of words about why we think the covenant is so important. We have 3 primary goals with those lands at Cape Roger Curtis. The first one is to protect them in perpetuity so that no board changes or any other issues can threaten the recreational use of those lands. And the covenant provides that kind of protection. The second objective we have is to allow the public to enjoy the lands, to walk around the trails, to go down to the bluffs, look out at the water and enjoy the wildlife and flora and fauna. And the covenant also addresses that item. The third issue, which is not directly addressed in the covenant application, is that we would like to use the lands for educational purposes with our schools and for the general public to educate them about the natural environment of the island. So I hope I don't want to go over time. I know your time is probably short because you're all very hot like me. And I'm going to stick around. I guess if you have any questions, you can always ask me during the time that you're talking about this thing. But thank you very much. We're really appreciative. We hope this covenant will be a great step in a collaborative relationship around the management of the lands at the Cape. Thank you.
Thank you, Owen, and thanks for sticking around too. That might come in useful. Hope.
Next, we have Mike Lightbody regarding the
Okay.
974 Windjammer development variance.
Welcome, Mike.
That wasn't me.
No.
Thank you, folks. Thank you, Your Honor, staff, council. I'm here to speak to a variance application for 974 Windjammer. I've got a very short blurb, half a page. Just wanted to read it to you quickly to explain a couple of the parameters on this project. We're asking for a relaxation for the waterfront setback. On behalf of my clients, John and Susan Rose, I would like to explain the proposed build. I will describe some of the organization behind the arrangement of the spaces included in this new home design and site planning that you're about to see tonight. The build is on the footprint of the existing house with a slight rotation and an extensional addition behind the home. And it has moved back slightly from the ocean setback, from the position the previous house was in. The design takes into consideration privacy views of our neighbors and visitors to Crayola Beach. And please note that it is important for my clients that the home blends nicely into the landscape and helps to enhance the blue water community. Any repositioning of the home from where shown will likely lead to increased blasting, cut and fill, and a height increase. The topography has a shelf where the previous house was built for a very good reason. That said, the overriding challenge here is including the specifics of this as it relates to aging in place. The intent is to have a seamless pedestrian route, as seamless a pedestrian route as possible from the parking to all floor levels and yard below, despite the aggressive topography. Susan Rose is legally blind, and thus we are creating a simple means of arrival and departure and an internal navigation system that minimizes the potential for daily access challenges. That's a top priority. The elevator, the bridge, from the garage to the house, and the third floor entry observatory are the results of countless design iterations wherein blindness and navigation were driving forces so she can arrive by car, go down to the very bottom of the house, and go to the lower yard and the floor in between. The design has coupled the efficiency of the building mostly within the original footprint with navigation efforts in a way that is hopefully self-explanatory. We very much thank you for your review of this application this evening, and should you have any questions regarding the submission at any time, please reach out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Next, we have Richard Wiefelspuett regarding bylaw 528 process.
Richard, welcome.
Yes, thank you and good evening. I will not turn my camera on. It's not because of bandwidth problems, but I'm sitting on the beach and cooling my legs, and I don't want to make you feel more envious than you might be already. So I'm also speaking to the bylaw 528, the process in particular. I submitted a written text as well, so I just skipped the innuendo, just go straight to the points. I think you've heard a lot of public comments in recent meetings about this process. There has been much criticism by the public. The key points of contention are the lack of transparency and the lack of explanation or rationale for the many proposed changes. It's now over a month ago that Council heard about these concerns, and the record of the regular Council meeting of 25th of May shows Councillor Nicholson responding to these comments, agreeing that many of the proposed changes go beyond what was at the time still misleadingly referred to as housekeeping amendments. Councillor Nicholson requested that the term housekeeping be dropped from the process, and thankfully this has now been rectified. And again, upon the fair and reasonable request by the public, Councillor Nicholson also requested that a black line version of the proposed bylaw with strict changes be made available. Thankfully, such a version has now been posted. However, Councillor Nicholson also requested that the public be provided with a valid reasoning for the many proposed changes, a transparent rationale that explains why these changes are being considered. Now, more than a month has passed, and we are only 2 weeks away from the scheduled public hearing. But such a rationale has not been yet provided. Why not? The people need to know why these changes are being proposed. It is unfair and patently unreasonable to expect the public to sift through years of council meetings and staff reports in search of a rationale for each of these proposed amendments. And as it stands, the general public is provided little to no insight into the detailed thought processes that may underpin the proposed changes and has nothing in hand to prepare adequately for the public hearing. How do we know our officials have considered all the angles and come to the best decision possible? All we are given is a decision based on the recommendation of staff. And a so-called information package is advertised on the public notice for the hearing, but no such package that would deserve this designation is provided on the planning webpage. Without the required transparency, the public hearing is premature and must be postponed. Alternatively, the draft bylaw number 528 should be suspended altogether and amendments be tackled issue by issue instead. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Next, we have Margaret Underhill regarding same.
Margaret, welcome.
Good evening,
ahead.
everyone. My husband, Brian Buckingham, and myself are the someone who sent the email earlier, and I thought I'd come and read it, given that some of you have obviously not had a chance to see that yet. We just wanted to check in with you, read the land use bylaw amendments public hearing scheduled for July 12th, 2021, and how the municipality is progressing with respect to the more relaxed public health COVID restrictions on public meetings. While Zoom meetings have been essential during COVID and have been an invaluable tool for many organizations and businesses to be able to continue their operations, keeping employees and the public safe, We are sure that we can all agree that Zoom meetings have their limitations. Personally, we have not found that council meetings held by Zoom and broadcast on YouTube have contributed to a feeling of community engagement and respectful dialogue between council and the community. As we're currently in step 2 of BC's restart plan, indoor seated public gatherings of up to 50 people with a safety plan in effect are permitted. Step 3, beginning on July 1st, depending on vaccination rates, and that threshold has of course already been met, case counts and hospitalization levels, that step will further reduce in-person restrictions. Given that the average attendance at Zoom/YouTube council meetings averages less than 30 people, it seems like a very opportune time for municipal administration and mayor and council to indicate their support for in-person community engagement on the important issue of proposed major changes to Bowen Island's land use bylaw, and announce that the public hearing on land use bylaw 528/2020 will be held in person with the appropriate COVID safety protocols in place. Alternatively, if the municipal administration, mayor and council are not comfortable with an in-person public hearing at this time, it would seem sensible to postpone this important public consultation until September, when we will be in step 4 of the restart plan. Given that the proposed land use bylaw amendments have been in the works for almost 3 years, as part of Strategic Priority 2018, a delay of a few more weeks would surely not cause any problems. As municipal planning staff are obviously extremely busy on building and development permits, as described on the front page of the June 24th undercurrent, they would most likely appreciate the additional time to focus on processing these permits to meet Bowen residents' immediate needs. Staff and council would do well to demonstrate full transparency, open-mindedness, and engagement by postponing a complex public hearing of such importance to all of us on Bowen Island until we can all meet in person again. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Next, we have Lesley Gaunt regarding same.
All right.
Good evening. I'm speaking also to the notice regarding public hearing by bylaw number 528. I'm asking that the public hearing be postponed for 2 reasons. First, the public does not have enough information in hand to prepare well for a public hearing on the 12th of July. Secondly, we will soon be able to return to in-person meeting, and only face-to-face we can recapture the energy that is found in person. No doubt people are looking forward to a return to greater citizen participation in their meetings. In a few months' time, this will be possible. As exemplified in the Ecclestone Beach controversy, Mayor and Council have recently displayed a tendency to ignore the input from a well-informed public and leaned on the input from staff. By definition, staff works in isolation and with a very narrow perspective. When it comes to the public good, a holistic approach, including emotional intelligence, local culture, and island traditions, is preferable to the narrow-mindedness of private interests and the nickel and diming lens of contrived economical development.
Lesley, please don't comment like that.
Okay, I'll continue then. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
The draft of the Islands Trust amended policy statement highlights how this can be achieved and provides a current example of how to put meat on the bones of the timely issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion. As it stands, ignoring the public on the Ecclestone Beach controversy, I'll skip that then. I think that's what it says.
Thank you.
Applying big picture thinking to the process of the land use bylaw amendments and incorporating the true spirit of equity, diversity, and inclusion in this process supports the postponement of this public hearing to a date when more information is being made available and when the public can participate again in person, face-to-face, and well-informed. It's better to take the long, short way than the short, long way. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Lesley.
Last but not least, we have Robyn Fenton regarding the BIRCH grant application.
Hello, Robyn.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. I wanted to just touch very briefly on 2 subjects. Quickly, I hope you received my letter updating you on the funding. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful in being selected for BC Housing's Community Housing Fund, but we're optimistic. We have further plans lined up, so we're moving on to Plan B, and we'll be talking with the federal funders at CMHC. So it certainly doesn't end here, and we'll keep rolling, and we'll keep you informed as we move forward. But next, what I did want to talk to you about tonight on your agenda is the community grants committee recommendations. And I just wanted to touch on it because this is something that's come up for a few years. BIRCH has been applying for the community grants. We've also applied unsuccessfully for the multi-year core funding grants. And I just wanted to give feedback. I watched the meeting, both meetings for the community grants this year, and I really felt for the committee. And some of their comments resonated with some of our experience, so I just wanted to pass it on. We really feel like BIRCH in terms of seeking out operational funds, which are absolutely critical for us to keep going and for us to get these further funds for the project funding that is out there. There's no other choice for us for operational funds. All of the grants we received from these government agencies are for the project. So for us to keep going and be able to maintain our operations and our accounting and bookkeeping, we need operational funds. And we just feel like we don't quite fit into the existing categories. We really don't fit into, I think, the spirit of the community grants, which is kind of what the community grant committee said. They're looking for smaller amounts, one-off initiatives, those smaller things, which we don't fit into. And so far, we don't really fit into the core multi-year core funding, I think, yet, because we're just not quite that established yet. We aren't such a going concern that we can maybe slot into there. So I just wanted to give you that feedback. I'm not sure if this is on your radar, if it's even possible, but from our point of view, between us, and I certainly don't speak on their behalf, but seeing their application as well, us, Family Place, Caring Circle, Tourism, Bowen Island, we're all these small operations seeking operational funding. And I wonder if there's a way to perhaps relook at the grants that are offered, and maybe there's different categories offered, because I also feel that it probably isn't a good fit for our operational funds to be competing against these other small community initiatives. So I just wanted to give that feedback and hope that maybe council will consider relooking at those grants for next year, and maybe creating a different stream that might be more appropriate. So we're not competing against, or we're competing like for like, as opposed to against these other smaller initiatives. That being said, I believe that we've been recommended for $8,500, which again, we're very appreciative of all of the funding that the municipality has given us to date. Our request was for $20,000, which is our operational budget. And certainly we can, as anybody can, we can tighten our belts and cut a few things, but $8,500 is probably going to leave us a bit short. And I know in past, there's been a chance to look at your strategic funding, that there's a line item there. And again, this is tricky for us because how do we apply for that? And I don't think we can directly apply for it. So it's again, a tricky spot for us to approach. Do we approach you directly, which I don't think you want organizations to approach you directly for that line of funding. So again, just giving you feedback, we're sort of caught between a rock and a hard place, not really knowing exactly where to ask for and what avenues to go through to ask for this funding. So we would appreciate if there is other funds, other pots that you can dip into to top up our funding. Like I said, we can definitely tighten our belts, but $8,500 will be a bit lean for us for operations. And lastly, I wanted to touch on, because it is connected, and I know it hasn't really been on the radar
Robyn,
lately.
I hate to cut you off. We're running out of time.
I know. So can I say one more sentence? The MRDT, and I know it's not on your radar, but it is something that if we can push it forward would provide revenue for our operations. So thank you for your time, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Robyn. Your points are well taken. Thank you. Okay, Hope. I guess we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything that they would like to have some further clarification on in the consent agenda? Or is everybody happy with what's there? I'm looking for hands. I'm not seeing any. All right. Well, with that, the recommendation is that the minutes of the regular council meeting held June 14th, 2021 be adopted.
Wrong recommendation. We want the council approve the items as outlined.
The council approved the items as outlined in the June 28th, 2021 consent agenda. Sorry, I missed that.
No worries.
We'll approve that by consensus. And we're going to move on to
Harry, you might want to mention to Owen that the CRC covenant was in the consent agenda.
We just passed it.
And we just
I know. Owen, did you pick up on that? That was in
I looked at the agenda earlier and I saw that. And since you've approved it, thank you very, very much.
Well, our pleasure, believe me. Thank you, Owen.
Best of luck over there.
Get to go and cool off now.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thanks, everybody.
Liam, did you have something there, or was it just?
No, just a good work, and thank you.
Yes, good work indeed, and thank you. Okay, so we'll move right down to bylaws and the use of public places bylaw and bylaw notice enforcement amending bylaw 5/37 and 5/38/2021. And that's over to Daniel Martin, Manager of Planning, and Bonnie Brokenshire, Manager of Environment and Parks Planning. Take it away.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. And tonight I'm presenting Bylaw 537 and Bylaw 538 for third reading. I'll go through this because it is third reading and you've seen the information before, but just a little recap. At the March 22nd, 2021 council meeting, staff brought forward Bylaw 537 and Bylaw 538, and it was aimed at addressing some uses and consequently alleviating some deleterious impacts to public places and minimizing liability risks. And at the March 22nd, 2021 meeting, council passed a resolution. It was actually a first reading for bylaw number 537 and bylaw 538. And at the May 10th, 2021, council gave the two bylaws second reading. So just really quickly, a few details about the bylaws. Again, they pertain to certain uses on public land only, not private land. And some activities such as polluting or other forms of damage to public places are addressed in the bylaw. And the bylaw includes common regulations pertaining to public places and a mechanism to allow permitting for certain activities. Staff currently receives requests to use municipal land and to hold activities, but mechanisms are not currently in place to address these requests. Just move on quickly and incorporating council's feedback. So I have incorporated, Daniel and I have along the way, both the comments from first reading and second reading. And some definitions were tightened up, some provisions were removed, and especially provisions that were contained within other municipal bylaws or provincial legislation. And just readability and some consistency and typos were cleaned up. And incorporating public comments, to date, 3 community members provided feedback, and I did go over that feedback at the last presentation. And most of those feedback, the three pieces of feedback were incorporated. And permits to occupy public place, just to reiterate that this bylaw does include some provisions that are permittable through an application. And there's nominal fees to cover staff time. The enforcement can be done within regular working hours for bylaw services. And the financial considerations, the bylaw is not anticipated to have any additional financial implications. However, some of the permit fees could go into addressing maybe some minor tweaks to grass that's maybe disturbed through a larger event or picking up garbage and those sort of things. Environmental considerations, the intent of the bylaw is to dissuade deleterious activities on public places. And, some of the activities that may cause environmental impacts hopefully will be curtailed through the bylaw. So the recommendations before council tonight are, I'm just going to move my second here. That bylaw number 537, 2021, cited as Bylaw Island or Bowen Island Municipality Use of Public Places, bylaw number 537, 2021, as amended, be read a third time. And that bylaw number 538, 2021, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Bylaw Notice Enforcement bylaw number 196, 2008, amendment bylaw number 538, 2021, as amended, be read a third time.
All right, thank you very much, Bonnie. And I'll go for the questions. I see David.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Bonnie. This is an important bylaw and I support it. I probably remember over the last months, I was a little worried that we're getting into overreach in some areas, and I gave my comments into staff, and all of my comments were dealt with in one way or another. So I'm pleased to see this. I'm pleased to see the work that staff has done, and I'm in support and will vote in favor. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, David. To Maureen, then Allison.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Daniel and Bonnie. And I also am in support of this bylaw. I did have a question though, and it has to do with the wording of section 3.2. If you could just take a look. The beginning of the but the clause reads, except as provided for in section 3.3, part 5 of this bylaw. What is section 3.3, part 5 of this bylaw?
Oh, it actually, I think it should say section 3.3 and part 5.
And part 5.
So
Yeah.
delete the comma and insert and?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Because part 5 deals specifically with the temporary shelters.
Yeah, so that's Maureen 3.2I would be the except for, where it's erect, construct, or build, or cause to be erected, constructed, or built a tent.
Okay.
Or camp, I guess, with J.
Okay, so what is the suggested rewording then?
Delete the
Should
comment.
be part J.
I'm sorry,
Well,
yeah, Allison's-
you don't, because there's 3 pieces that are being accepted, 3.3, part 5, or by permit in part 6.
Oh, right.
Then
we
you
don't
wouldn't,
need-
Oh, I see, yeah.
grammatically
Yeah,
speaking,
got it.
you wouldn't have a comma or an and. I mean, I'm fine to put an and in there, but
No, you need the
it's
comma.
like 1, 2,
Yeah,
comma, and 3. So
okay.
I'm
That makes
Actually-
more sense.
Or it could be another or, right? Except as provided for in section 3.3 or part 2 of this bylaw or by permit as it reads. So I think if we put a
Or
word
5.
or in front
Part
of it.
5.
Part 5 of this bylaw.
That clarifies, because I went searching for section 3.3, part 5, and it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay.
That's all for me.
Make the comma bigger.
Well, no, I think the
All
or
right.
help.
Okay, Allison?
My question has to do with the definition of public place. And I'm not quite sure why beaches is referred to twice. I thought I'd raised the question before, but it's still the same. Municipal buildings and moors, parks, trails, beaches, greenways, playgrounds, and beaches.
I can strike one of the breaches.
So just strike the one at the end and put a period after streets.
I'll put and streets.
Yeah. Thank you. Good one, Allison. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, Rob?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Yeah, I mean, all of you know that I didn't vote for moving it past second reading, and I definitely had some concern about overreach and also around public consultation, and I do think the rewrite is a bit better than the report before, and I appreciate staff taking some of my comments into consideration. But for me, you know, when we're restricting use on public space, like that's a pretty high bar for me, and I just need to really feel that it's very necessary and that we don't have overreach, and that there is really broad public understanding on what's happening here. And, you know, we've had 3 people comment on it, which is not a lot. I actually consider this a much bigger issue than the land use bylaw changes, which we're doing way more public consultation on. And I've spoken with a number of people on Island, and they were surprised at some of the things that were being proposed, and they didn't know about it either. So I don't think we've done enough of a job to really inform the public on some of these changes. You know, 3.1G, for instance, no more smoking or vaping on public property. Sounds like, you know, it's happening everywhere, Horseshoe Bay, but, you know, have we talked to, you know, the morning crew at 6 that have a smoke on the sidewalk there, what their feelings are about that, how much of a problem is it? I also sometimes worry, and I've noticed this at my work where we created more rules, that people start complaining more and you actually start generating issues. So I have some concerns about that. And also, you know, in the 3.2 section, which are, we don't allow them unless we do a permit. I'm just a bit concerned about that as well, like 20 people or more. So like, you know, we've had these little flash dances happening. Do we need to have people permitting now? Do we want to be doing that? Use of organized sport. Also, you know, this was brought up by another councillor before, it's just the affixing of postage and signs in the community.
Definitely.
So it's just, the fireworks ban. I just think we need to have a bit more of community conversation about this before we pass something like this. And there's a lot of resources that are going to be needed to potentially police some of this. And I understand Bonnie's and the bylaws challenge. I totally get it. I work in the public sector, and when you don't have things to back you up, it's frustrating. But I'm also worried that this is a really broad net, and we're maybe dealing with a couple of problem areas, and that we're going a bit too broad on this. So unfortunately, I'm still not comfortable, and I probably won't be supporting moving past third reading on this. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Sue Ellen?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to say a couple of things. I'm in favor of this bylaw, and I read through it carefully. I thought it was, I checked into a few places, and I'm going, no, that could work. I'm familiar with regulations in parks, and such as Crippen Park, and this is very similar, and it gives, or from what I can see from my work years ago, but I think people do expect rules in public places, and I think this also is an invitation. You can get a permit. Yes, here's how, and here's what it costs, and and that kind of thing, and it gives an opportunity for a conversation to happen. And I think we've got a lot of careful work that's been done on this, and I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue Ellen. And Maureen?
Sorry, there were a couple of other points that I wanted to make. They were in relation to the application. I'm sorry, my notes were in an earlier version of this agenda, and they've disappeared. Is there anyone else? And no, there's no one else who wants to speak. Sorry.
I'll see if I made notes of your notes.
Maureen, my only comment, and it's just in relation to Rob's comments, and I know it seems a little overwhelming. I think a lot of this was fashioned after the Seashelt, and I read through the Seashelt one, and there was everything about picking flowers and that sort of thing. And I thought, wow, this is really something. But to go back to the old tools in the toolbox analogy, you load up your toolbox with say 100 different tools or something. You go to do a job, and you want to make sure that you have the right tool for the job, and you don't have to go back and get your tool that you left back at the shop. So this does seem a little overbearing. I understand that, but I think they are strictly, as to the analogy, they're tools that we can use or not use, depending on what's going on. But if we don't have them and we have to go back in, we don't have to use them. But I'm saying we don't have to use them all, but sometimes they're going to be fairly restrictive, and we might just need that particular tool in there. So that's my thinking on it. I understand it does look a little overwhelming. There's no question about that, but I don't think it's going to come as a package. There's no question about that. So that'd be my only comment, Maureen.
Yeah, my comments had to do with the application itself, and in some of the prompts, for example, special activities, and then you give a list of potential special activities. It's just a suggestion in terms of formatting of the form. You might want to be using some sort of drop-down checkbox so that people are given a fairly exhaustive list of things. Otherwise, you're leaving it up to them to come up with all the, for example, the requirements of the municipality. In that instance, people may not really know what the municipality might require on a site, but if they're prompted, they might think, oh yeah, I actually need to get this. So just a wee bit more detail in that spot. It's fine as is. I'm happy to vote and support as is, but just as the form gets refined over time, might be a...
And that's good education as well for the public. So yeah. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to move the, oh, sorry, Sue, go ahead. No.
Just a follow-up question about that. Could because this is Schedule A, it means whenever Bonnie needs to change the form, does she need to come back to council? Or could she put together an online form or change it to be more attractive or something like that? Is this form necessary to have in the bylaw? I guess is my question. Does it limit how often and how it could be changed just to be more user-friendly or to be an online form?
Daniel, what do we do with the building permits? Is the form part of the building permit bylaw?
We just changed the building bylaw, so it says something about like in the form, like the manager can make changes to the form.
So it reads an application as required by the manager. Or
I think so. I think then it says as generally in the form of Appendix A or something.
yeah.
Okay, so this could be changed, then the forms could be changed.
Thank you. That's all I want to
Changing the
know,
bylaw.
and I'm still in support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sue Ellen. Alice, your hand's still up, is that?
Yeah, well then maybe in 8.1 in the bylaw, we want to say Schedule A application for use of a public place and permit generally in the form as laid out. Part, yeah. And Schedule B, use of a public place fee schedule. I think that one we have to lay, but so if you just said,
what are you saying for the first part?
I'm thinking out loud as I'm going here. Schedule A generally in the form attached, or say application for use of a public place and permit generally in the form attached as Schedule A.
Okay.
That work, Daniel? Is that sort of?
Yeah, and then it could say like as amended by the.
Or as amended from time to time by the
manager.
By the manager.
I guess because we're
Is
giving.
everybody happy with that? They'll have to do some wordsmithing. Hope, did you get anything there? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't rewrite the bylaw, but I've captured the changes, and we can edit
Okay.
tomorrow.
Is everybody okay with that, Allison? Your hand's still up?
Oh yeah, no, that's good. We can tidy it up for fourth reading.
Absolutely correct. So I will move the recommendations as spoken. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sue Ellen. And any further discussion? No, I'll ask the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think we got everybody. And opposed? Rob in opposition. Councillor Winan in opposition. Okay, thank you, everybody. And now we're going to move on to the last hurrah. This is the staff reports and the 2020 Statement of Financial Information. Raj Hayre, Chief Financial Officer. Go ahead, Raj.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the Statement of Financial Information is legislatively required reporting and filing, and it includes the audited financial statements for the previous year, so for 2020. And it also includes additional schedules comprised of a schedule of remuneration, accompanied by a schedule identifying severance agreements and, or rather not identifying, but just summarizing them. And it requires a list of payments made to suppliers during the year to be included, with those suppliers paid more than $25,000 identified separately, and the rest, the amount paid to the rest of the suppliers is in lump sum. What we do is, for council's benefit, we prepare an additional schedule and attach it within, it's attached within the council report. And it includes a general or generic description of what was paid for to each of the suppliers. There was a amended schedule on table today. It was a schedule of remuneration. I had missed including some information that is prescriptively required, so I've updated it to include the information. It now reports as required by the province. And so essentially looking for council's approval of the Statement of Financial Information report as presented this evening. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on the report.
Right, thank you, Raj. And Allison.
I just wanted to ask Raj to just clarify for the general public, because people have asked that there is no requirement to list the names of people who received severance or the actual amounts that they received. The legislation does not require that.
That is correct. It requires the number of severance agreements made during the year and a disclosure of the range of equivalent month salary as reported in that schedule.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, anybody else have a question out there? Well, then I will move the recommendation the council approve the 2020 statement of financial information prepared as included in the June 28th, 2021 regular council agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Allison, and no further discussion on this question. All in favor?
Wait, I'm
There's Sloan. Sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, because this is a late on table agenda, do we need to refer to that in the motion? Because it says.
Thanks, Councillor Fass. I was just about to say we should tack on as amended at the end.
Okay. Thank you. So that'll be a friendly amendment as amended at the end of that. Thank you, Sue Ellen. And okay, I'll ask the question. All in favor? Aye. Woo! That's it, Raj.
Get out of here, Raj.
Your days of stardom are over.
Yeah, you're out.
If I could just add to that, it's been a pleasure working with all of you, and thank you for your support throughout my time here at Bowen. I've really appreciated it, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been a great ride. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Raj.
We're going to miss you,
Both
Raj.
ways.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Thanks, Raj. Thanks so much.
All right, 8.2 is development variance permit DVP 2021-00-0045, 974 Windjammer Road, like Lightbody, and over to Daniel Martin, Manager of Planning and Development. Daniel.
Thank you. Let me start this up. Okay, can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So today I have to introduce to you a development variance permit at 974 Windjammer, so DVP 2021-0045. This property is located on the shoreline in the Blue Water neighborhood of Bowen Island. And here it is, so it's adjacent to Crayola Beach and the trail that runs down to the beach from Windjammer. Of note for this property too, this is a series of properties in the Blue Water area that doesn't directly front onto the high water mark, so the boundary of the sea, but instead there is a strip of crown land that goes between 974 Windjammer and the ocean itself. So the application before you is an application to rebuild an existing house. So a house was built in the 1970s, almost adjacent, almost right up against the property line and within what is now required as a setback to the sea. So this image is a little busy, but I'll talk you through it. So the purple box is the existing house and existing deck. The red thin line that runs along is the property line itself. And beyond that is the crown land strip. And then the green house is what is proposed to be built. So house transitioning it into garage in the upper part of the site. And then the blue dotted line is the required setback to the sea. So if they were to completely rebuild and follow the setbacks, it would be behind the blue line. So what we are seeing is an application to be set back 22.95 meters setback from the sea and 0.45 meters to the lot line. So the house overall is set back further from the sea than the existing house. The orientation has changed slightly, so it's moved slightly further from Crayola Beach.
Okay.
And then, so that's the overview of the application. So the recommendation from staff is that notice be given, the council give notice that they'll consider the application at the July 26th meeting of council, and that council authorize staff to give notice to all properties within 100 meters of 974 Windjammer.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, so could you just, maybe you want to put that map back on and show me where this side setback is? I'm having a little issue with that. I don't know about anybody else, but no, the rear lot line set.
Yeah.
There, that's 7.5.
Yeah, so the red line, do you see my cursor?
Yeah.
The red line on this image is the property line itself.
Okay, yeah.
A weird lot.
It's a weird shaped lot, yes.
Very weird, yeah.
Yeah, and so our bylaws would require a 7.5 meter setback from the rear property line, and a 30 meter from the sea or average of neighbors. But so because of this crown land strip, the property doesn't run all the way to the high water mark, and so they're within the rear.
So which is the rear property line?
That's what I can't figure out.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
So if you see 974, so the front property line is the lot line common with the
That little piece,
this little piece, and so the rear is
the waterfront side.
the waterfront side.
Ah,
It's
okay.
the rear of their property.
Yeah, now I'm getting it. Yeah.
Along with the crown strip, right?
So the crown strip itself is not part of the property, not part of the setback, but in essence, it enforces a certain amount of setback to the sea.
Right.
Yeah,
So
66 feet.
the rear property line would be the line between the crown strip and 974. That's
Yes.
isn't that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you go back to that other map
Oh,
for
I
a
see.
minute?
Yeah, there it
Daniel?
is. There it is, Allison.
Yeah.
Sorry, Allison, this map?
No, the other one.
Oh,
Is that a creek? That blue line that runs down
Yes.
the trail?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
so actually the setbacks are both have to do with the ocean side. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's good clarification. So the actual house is from what I can see, is moving back from where the current house is.
That's what Mike said.
Yeah, so it's not as clear as some applications. It's literally in the same footprint, but just moved back. In this case, it's moved slightly over as well, but overall it is further from the sea and further from Crayola.
Yeah. And by looking at the topography, it would be pretty hard to put the house anywhere else on the property, I would think. That's obviously why they've selected it as they have. Okay, so I'm going to go to the board here, I think. There we go. Questions? No questions, eh?
I have one.
Well,
Sorry.
yeah.
Sorry. Oh, I'm just wondering about, Daniel, if you could explain alternatives to variance. You've got that little section on underneath the proposed variance, and I don't understand what the difference is between absent a variance, the applicant could construct what is the existing non-conforming structure provisions?
Sure, so the Local Government Act has provisions in it for if you build a house that's lawful at the time that you build it, and then the bylaws change. And they say that you can then maintain, extend, or alter the existing non-conforming structure to the extent that the repair, extension, or alteration would, when completed, involve no further contravention of the bylaw. So if you have a house that's within a setback, that the setback came about after you built it, you could rebuild it as long as you have the same shape in essence. So we've done ones where we essentially make the person survey their building beforehand, and then they survey it when they're completed that they've replaced it, or the repairs have replaced it exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue Ellen. Michael?
Yeah, there's always an issue when you look at a property on a flat piece of paper, which actually has quite intricate topography. And as someone said, it's obvious why the original house was there. Daniel, in your opinion, if this house was to be replaced as presented, is there any impact at all of the change structure to the surrounding neighborhood?
I don't think so. The one thing that sort of gave me pause on this application is just its location right next to Crayola Beach. But the existing house already, as it is, looks out over the beach. It's pretty prominent. So the replacement in moving further away reduces that impact.
Okay. So, and then neighbor, obviously, well, neighbor, that's relative. It's not going to have any impact on any other people residing around that it would be obvious to you at this stage.
Yeah, not that I could see. We did encourage the applicant to reach out to his neighbors. So there is one letter from the neighbors already on the agenda that you can see.
Yes, I did. Okay, no, thank you, Daniel. As I said, when we're looking at a flat piece of paper, a property with a complicated topography, and as someone said, it's quite obvious why the original property was put there. And if this one wasn't to be there, it would be a major reconstruct all round, and a lot of earth moving, rock moving, etc. So
a lot of blasting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Allison.
I was having trouble downloading the letter of support. Are they adjacent to the, are they the property immediately? I don't know, I guess it's to the north or to the right as you're facing the ocean? Do you know where, because we block out addresses and everything too.
The addresses are on the other one, on the map.
I believe that they're the property immediately north.
So that's the only neighbor that it would have an impact on, because the others, it's way below them. So they're in support. And it has really no change in impact to Crayola Beach. It might even be a little better because they're reorienting a little bit. So I would be quite happy to move the recommendation.
As written?
As written, but I guess we need to read it, that notice be given that council will be considering the issuance of development variance permit DVP 2021-0045 for the variance of the setbacks to the sea in the rear lot line for 974 Windjammer, legally described as Lot B, District Lot 3042, Group 1, New Westminster District Plan, EPP 61561, PID 031228160 at the July 26, 2021 meeting of council. And the council authorized staff to give notice for the consideration of issuance of development variance permit DVP 2021-0045 in accordance with section 499 of the Local Government Act to all properties within 100 meters of the legal boundary of 974 Windjammer, legally described as Lot B, District Lot 3042, Group 1, New Westminster District Plan, EPP 61561, PID 031228160. I'll move that.
Very good.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And any further discussion on this one? Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Thank you very much, Daniel. And we're going to move on to the 8.3, which is the 2020 annual report. Hope Dulles, corporate officer. If you'd like to talk about that.
Yes, I'll be brief. We didn't have anyone sign up for public comment, and it doesn't look like we have any of the members of the public present. So I'm presenting the 2020 annual report as required under section 99 of the community charter. And it just gives an overview of the highlights of each department, our strategic initiatives, and we didn't have a strategic plan in 2020, so it just outlines the highlights from all of our accomplishments. And we published notice for 2 weeks, and it's been available on our website since June 14th. Yeah, so it's provided in the agenda, and we're just looking for council to approve it.
Okay, accept it or approve it?
Approve.
Okay, so the recommendation is the council approve the 2020 annual report as included in the June 28th, 2021 regular council agenda. Move that.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Dave. And Allison, over to you for comments.
Well, you didn't let me make a couple of suggested changes to it.
Oh, boy, okay.
3 of them are typos, which I'm quite sure Hope can fix without having to do anything. My concern was in 98.1F for Fred, we're supposed to provide statement of objectives and reporting on them for the current year, i.e. 2020, which we have done, but it also says, and for future years. So I thought that we needed a reference at the bottom of page 12 to say, please refer to Island Plan 2021 for our plans for 2021 and future years.
Yep, I can include that for sure.
And then the other one is just, this is Liam's first year, and the way Liam's written his very good report, and lauds and thanks to council or to staff for all their excellent work. He's written it as if it's staff's report and it's council's report. So I'm not sure whether we need to change that opening line in Liam's comments.
Okay. In what in particular there?
Well, the very first sentence, Liam, I can't open it up.
Where it says on behalf of all staff of Bowen.
Yeah, and then keep going.
All right. Report provides highlighted updates by each.
No, on behalf of staff, I'm pleased to present, isn't it?
It says I'm pleased and grateful to present the 2020 annual report on behalf of all the staff at Bowen Island.
Yeah. So, but it's council who has to prepare and present the report.
Well, Gary's statement is earlier in the report.
Yeah.
You've got a letter in there, and it comes first. I think it's fine. Anyway, that's just.
I just sort of, wasn't sure.
Because that's the informal part of the writing, I thought that was okay.
I mean, happy to amend that. Just recognizing the and there's a recognition of staff.
Oh, I have no problems with any of that part. It's just I'm pleased to present on behalf of staff the annual report.
Yeah.
I'm pleased.
Can we add council and staff?
How about on behalf of Bowen Island Municipality?
There we go.
Yeah. Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you, Maureen. Yeah.
How's that, Allison? Is that good?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, what are the other points you had there?
I think we got the two. The other three were small typos, like changing an of to an it, and then dropping an s, and
okay.
Not updated.
Take care of those.
Right on. Okay, Sue Ellen.
Thank you. I'm happy to support this report, and I just wanted to point out that I've been starting to print off pages and slip them into my file, just because there's such a good description of what was accomplished that year.
Yes.
And they're easy to read, and it makes a nice list. So for anybody wishing to catch up on a topic out there in the public, take a look at this report. It looks really like a boring title, 2020 annual report, but it's actually engaging and useful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Say the same about the financial statements. Previous report.
It's different. All right. Any other comments? All right, then I'll ask the question. We have
we'll just change the wording. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, there it is, 100%. Thank you.
Good job.
Really good job.
I can't take credit. It was all Janet.
No.
I wrote the report.
Thanks, Janet.
Teamwork. Well done.
Okay, so I had to go to paper here. The next one is the reports of committees, Cal, and commissions. And the first one on the dock, there's 10-1, recommendations from the Community Grants Advisory Committee, meetings held May 25th and 31st. And that's over to Councillor Kale. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. And maybe we could address point one and totally separately from point two.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we've got Raj here as well, because we're having to go back in the memory bank to look at the actual dollars and cents. But in essence, the Community Grants Advisory Committee had, I think it's correct to say, $42,000 to dispense. Am I right, Raj, around that area?
Yeah.
And I think the total sum of the requests, and I would like to address this in section 2, was well over 100,000 was the actual requests. But nevertheless, the group got together, and in front of you, the recommendations were that the Community Grants Advisory Committee recommend to Council that the amounts specified be allocated to the following, and you can see them all listed there: Caring Circle 15, Bowen Island United Church 0, Bowen Island Community Festival Association 22, Island Pacific School 0, Bowen Children's Center Society 85, Bowen Island Horse Owner and Riders Association 0, Light Up Bowen 22, Thrive Bowen 5, Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing 85, and Tourism Bowen 0. That was the recommendations from the Community Grants Advisory Committee. And I'm not sure what the protocol is here, but I presume that we're looking for a seconder for that. And then we can pass that one. We can pass that one on for action.
Rob, I'll take a second. Yeah. And did somebody read the recommendation there on the first one?
I'm happy to read it if you like.
Yeah, thank you.
So that council allocate the following amounts. Carried Circle 15,000, Bowen Island United Church 0. I think we could probably leave the zeros out or leave them in.
Yeah, I think we can leave them out.
Okay, Bowen Island Community Festival Association 2,200. Bowen Children's Center Society, Bowen Island Family Place 8,500. Light Up Bowen 2,200. Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing 8,500. Oh, Thrive Bowen 5,000. Sorry, skipped over that one.
Thank you. And that is the recommendations from the Community Grants Advisory Committee.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Sue Ellen, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much to the committee for doing all this hard work. I read it through carefully and went back into the reports, and good thinking. I'm just want to point out that Thrive Bowen, the $5,000, is also in the next item. So depending on what we do with 10.2, there's more funding for them there. Isn't that right? Yeah, and number 3 on the following item. So that's all. I just wanted to bring that to council's attention, but otherwise I'm in support. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. Allison?
Thank you.
I guess it was sort of similar. Is Thrive Bowen the Polytech, Kwantlen Polytech University Foundation?
It's a greenhouse operation, I thought.
Yes.
And they're involved with them, Allison.
Yeah.
Okay, so how much did they ask for in total? I can't.
5,000. They asked for 5,000. They put an extremely detailed presentation for the sum, a very impressive presentation for the amount of 5,000 exactly.
Okay. So I guess my question has to be, I think in 10.2, I assume they asked for the same 5,000 again, or the CAREP funding?
No, they asked for a smaller amount. I don't remember what the amount was.
They asked for 1,500 from the CAREP fund. And the total budget for the project, Allison, is significantly more than that.
Okay.
In the budget submission that they sent in to possibly to the community grants, but certainly to ECAC, it showed them leveraging funding from, if they were able to secure a certain amount, they had a number of community donors, individual companies and members of the community who were prepared to contribute to lift the amount. And I think the total amount for their project is in the neighborhood of $25,000 to $30,000.
So basically what I'm getting at is $7,500 isn't more than they were asking for in total.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, they're not double dipping.
No.
No.
Well, given we were so short on everybody else, that's why I was wanting to, I was going to suggest maybe we deal with 10.2 before we deal with 10.1 if the two were duplicates, but that's fine.
Okay, anybody else? Any further discussion? I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And then to go on to 10.2, the discussion this year followed actually the discussion last year, and perhaps we were just a trifle remiss in the fact that the actual conversations last year, we didn't really nail down. The biggest issue facing this group is the fact that given the COVID years, obviously there's a very real commitment to Caring Circle, the Children's Centre, and to housing. And what the group were asking is, or wish to put before council, very simply, is that these excellent areas for support could actually find a more permanent form of funding from the municipality, because every year they come forward. And if you think of our total amount of 42,000, really the feeling was the 42,000 should be for smaller, locally based initiatives. Maybe Thrive Bowen is a good example. So it really, the funds, because of the belief in those businesses, was such that by the time you've made a commitment to the three of them, it really left very little else. So what the committee wanted council to consider was some form of ongoing funding for a Caring Circle, for the Island Pacific, for the children's care, for BIRCH, and to take that out of the small grants, because this really should be titled, it's a community grants, but it should really almost be titled community in brackets small grants. And for some of these large amounts, it just takes up so much of the total pot that it leaves so very little. So we don't necessarily have to beat this to death now, but we do need to diarize a further discussion of whether we agree with that approach, how it would be funded, because the concept would necessarily have to be agreed first, and then in conjunction with how we were going to fund it on an ongoing basis. So it will be a matter of discussion for us all.
Hey, thank you, Michael. Yeah, there used to be, we did have those grants used to be split between large and small. I think it was $2,500 and below, and then above 2,500. So I see what you're saying. My concern is, where's that money going to come from? Get out of there. That leaves us with about $10K in there for all the smaller community grants. Whether or not that's even worthwhile, I don't know. I don't know what these people were asking for, the other people, but obviously we're very short of the, what do you say it was, 80 grand or 100 grand?
Well, I think Light Up Bowen asked for an amount in excess of 20,000, did they not?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you know, there were Tourism Bowen Island, I think, asked for, was it 10 or 15? So, you know, there just wasn't, out of the 40,000, there was no way that suddenly it didn't seem a suitable place to make these type of grants. It just at 40,000 doesn't go that far when you start dividing it by those larger amounts. So you're putting the committee in a very difficult position, and that's why they were trying to separate these almost for sure ongoing amounts to see whether we would have, how we would manage it, recognizing there wouldn't be necessarily an answer tonight. It would be a matter of a further discussion.
Roger,
yeah. Thank you. I'm going to go to Raj first, and for his words of wisdom. Raj?
If I could go as far as not necessarily making a recommendation, but how to handle this, it'd be a two-step process. So some of these organizations could qualify. I mean, they're missing one or two of the criteria to allow them to qualify for multi-year core funding. And that's why they haven't applied for multi-year core funding. And we also don't have a budget provision to currently fund them for multi-year core funding. So what I would suggest is consider visiting the policy for multi-year core funding as step one. And as step two, consider increasing the budget or consider reviewing these as part of the 2022 budget, because you're going to need a funding source. And if for ongoing funding, it's most likely going to be the tax levy. So if you're looking for providing ongoing funding, you should be taking a look at funding these in conjunction with other priorities and challenges you'll be facing in the 2022 and ongoing years, rather than looking at them in isolation.
Yeah, good point. Thank you, Raj. Okay, back to Allison.
Raj raised a number of the points that I was going to raise. I don't think we should be voting on number 2 as it stands tonight, but considering it as part of the 2022 budget. Is there a summary somewhere of which ones are missing which criteria? I was going to say they need to apply for core funding, and because we've got a core funding policy. So,
okay, the only reason we didn't go that far, because this was a conversation that needed to be held first. And if there was an appetite to approach it in a certain manner, then we could deal with it logically and sequentially. But at the moment, we just need some initial direction.
Yeah. Okay, so because somebody captured what Raj was recommending in a wording for a motion. Hope.
Well,
just working on that now.
Okay.
Something along the lines of that council consider providing ongoing funding for Caring Circle Health and Wellness Society, Family Place, and BIRCH in the 2022 budget process.
And I think you had revisit the core funding criteria and the something else. Raj.
Yeah, let's not consider it. Let's not consider it permanent funding. It's going to be core funding, unless we want to set up a whole totally different source of funding for it. And we've got 3 sources of funding here. So I think it's either core funding or it's something else would be my idea. But I think it's going to take a little bit of work to get through this. There's no question.
Can we defer this resolution to another meeting and the staff can work on the wording? Maureen's got her hand up.
Yeah, let's go through the question. Get back to Maureen.
I would like to at least get Raj's initial suggestion moved, get it into the record, and that's to revisit the core funding policy. We put that policy in place in 2017, and it was based on policies from other communities. And the primary criterion was that the organization had to be delivering a service that typically would be provided by the municipality in other jurisdictions. That was the key piece, and that's the criterion that some of these organizations are missing, because other municipalities may not be providing infant child care, or they may not be providing anything like a care. So revisiting the policy to see where the mismatch is, I think would be the first step. And then looking at the 3 organizations that at heart we think really should probably, I think we all agree that they probably should be funded on an ongoing basis. So starting with the policy, I would suggest just a review of it.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. Sue Ellen?
Thank you. Yes, I just had some draft wording. So how does this sound? That council direct for the step 1 that Raj described, that council direct staff to review the criteria for multi-year core funding with respect to Caring Circle Health and Wellness Society, Family Place, and BIRCH, as per the recommendations of the Community Grants Advisory Committee.
I liked Maureen's that council revisit the core funding policy.
Keep it simple. Yeah.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, I agree.
Is it council or staff? I had that council direct staff to review the criteria for the multi-year core funding policy and report back to council.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that, Hope.
The council direct staff to review the criteria for the multi-year core funding policy and report back to council.
Okay, I like that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go to Liam.
Yeah, this is, I think, a really important one, and I think I like the idea of bringing it back with some more thought and a little more time. Also, because we would still want to see what's going to happen with the CAREP grant, if there's going to be any change. Because if there's no net new program, it would be great to be able to free up some room in our community funding for projects that would have otherwise been getting CAREP funding. So I think this is a good approach.
Okay.
Well, on behalf, Gary, of
Michael,
the people in this committee, thanks everybody, because this is exactly the discussion that they were hoping for. And I'm going to speak on their behalf, saying that, you know, that approach would be appreciated. So yes, if we could proceed along those lines, I think they'd be very pleased.
Are you moving the motion?
I'm moving the motion that Hope put together for me.
Well, maybe I could second it on behalf of the committee then.
Okay.
Hope, could you just read it again so we all know what we're voting on?
Yes, that council directs staff to review the criteria for the multi-year core funding policy and to report back to council.
That keeps it nice and simple. It's going to be that's an opening, and it's going to be quite complex to make this work. So that's a good start on it. We have lots of time because theoretically we don't have to worry about this till next year. Liam, your hand's still up. Did you want to speak again? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, so on that recommendation that was just read, I'll move that. A second.
It's been moved and seconded.
It's been moved
and seconded. Thank you. Okay. I'll any further discussion? Okay, I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye. All right, opposed? So Allison, you were in favor?
Yeah, I stuck my hand up.
Yeah, I just didn't catch it. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, everybody. That's gonna be worthwhile. 10.2, the recommendation from the Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee meeting held May 26, 2021 and June 15th, 2021. Councillors Hawking and Nicholson. Away you go.
David, could I speak to the money and you speak to the CAREP recommendation? Would that be okay?
I'm not sure how they're different. I'll speak very briefly about process, Maureen, and then you can go ahead. So this is similar to the last discussion, but what we did as a committee is we realized we needed to have more rigor in our approach as to how we would make these grants, and so we had a subcommittee develop a process which has an array of questions and points that are added based on the degree that this actually addresses community needs around environmental and environmental issues, and the quality of the proposal, an array of questions. And then after we did that and approved that, we had another committee then we put it out to the community, and then another committee reviewed, and I think we had about half a dozen proposals, and the points pulled these two to the top. And so they were the recommendation, and the strong recommendation of the committee. These are both good projects, and Michael already talked about one of them, extremely interesting and very well supported around the community. That's the Thrive one, and it's around greenhouses. So Maureen, over to you.
Yeah, so the recommendations are a bit sprawly. The first and the third one should be combined. So is Hope there? Yes, there's Hope. So Hope, rewording the first recommendation. So the council allocate the 2019 CAREP funds as follows: 1,500 to Molly Dennis and Hannah Seiden for the Uncharted Waters, the Young Voices of Howe Sound documentary film project, and 2,500 to Thrive Bowen to conduct an implementation analysis of community-owned commercial greenhouses on Bowen Island. So I'll move that.
Okay, I'll second that. Yeah, okay. Further discussion? Oh, okay. Allison.
It just occurred to me, we have a clause in our land use bylaw, the OCP, about no intensive agriculture. The commercial greenhouse isn't fit in that definition, does it? And Daniel's left.
Daniel described it as meaning
feedlots.
Yeah, that's, I was trying to remember the word.
Okay.
Yeah, and
But it's the feedlot type thing, not, okay.
No.
Yeah, I can't see us banning greenhouses. That would be pretty insane.
But we do some pretty insane things, people think.
And this is also a community-owned greenhouse. It's not intended for full-scale commercial purposes.
Hello, can I say something?
Yeah, Sue Ellen, I'm sorry, I was muted there somehow.
Okay, thank you. I read through this carefully as somebody who's been involved in raising food on Bowen through Collins Farm, Heritage Farm and Market Garden, and I thought, gosh, there's potential here. And I looked at their documents, and I thought, here we are sweltering through a heat crisis. And I've looked at the fire danger and the drought danger down there in California, where a lot of our produce comes from. And here we are needing climate action. So I think it's a good idea to look at this. There's lots of good tools out here. Here's the greenhouse checklist, essential considerations for the purpose and operation of community greenhouses, with all kinds of useful info. And so I think with the partners that have been described there, that will be great. I just have one question, and that is about the wording in the motion, community-owned commercial greenhouses. Does that mean that somebody would lease them? Or I just didn't get that from the paperwork, why that word commercial was in there. Does anybody know?
Like sell produce?
Yeah, they wanted to make, I can't speak to the details, Sue Ellen, but it's not just for backyard growing, it's to be able to produce produce for the island.
Yeah.
Large scale.
Well, the appropriate
larger
scale.
Well, it's not just for the group that's growing it for themselves, like a community garden type thing.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm happy to support it. I'm not in favor. It was just a question.
Okay. Is that it, Sue Ellen? I see your hand up still. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
David or Maureen, I just wanted to ask you, during these discussions, was there any thought about where these would go?
I don't have any information on that. I didn't see that in, no, it's an exploration of how that might work.
Yeah, okay.
They would have to, it's sort of a feasibility study. They said they would be looking into things, questions like that.
Yeah, that's a big question. Okay, so
we could vote now?
Yeah, where are we on the vote here?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye. All right, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
And then David, do you want to speak to the second part?
Yeah.
Can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm not sure what second part, Maureen, but that second part.
Just number two. About the carrot.
The letter.
The ECAC recommended a letter be sent to the ministry.
Oh, we did all that.
Yeah, I thought we did that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
1 and 3.
Yeah. I mean, Metro Vancouver has done that. It's, I think it would be useful for us to do that as a committee, as a council as well. Many other councils have done that. So sorry, yeah, I missed that in the when we're going through it right now. Yeah.
So the motion would be that council send a letter to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs requesting that the carrot program be replaced by another of similar or greater impact.
Yes. Now I would like to add some of the things that came out of the Climate Action Committee that I mentioned at our last meeting, which was that they be permanent rather than grants based, and that they are relative to emission reductions in the entire community, not just from the corporate sector, not just from the municipality's operations itself.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But I mean, I would just I don't think that needs to be in the motion.
Were those covered off in the whereas?
No.
No, yeah.
It could maybe just a reference to our climate action strategy that we've adopted.
Well, it could do that. You know, we have a climate action strategy. There are a lot of activities, and we certainly need a source of funding that is regular and predictable, and not simply grants based.
So why don't you change it to say that council send a letter to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs requesting that CARET program be replaced by another of similar or greater impact, and that it be permanent funding.
Yeah, or regular funding. I mean, permanent is a rather permanent word. A regular.
This seems to be very familiar. Liam, can you remember if somebody sent a letter or did something along these lines?
We did, Gary. It was Metro Vancouver, and it was my report.
That's what it was. Okay.
Metro Vancouver did, and then Metro Vancouver also asked the Climate Action Committee, which I also sit on, to provide more detail about the kinds of things that are needed in the replacement. Yeah. Those are the two things that there were an array of things that they mentioned, but those are the two that I felt were key in terms of our community. That it's regular funding, and that it's funding, and someone just mentioned, I forget who it was, that we have our own climate action strategy. Our climate action strategy is not just about municipal emissions, it's from the municipal hall and our equipment and so on. It's for the entire community.
All right.
Did we bring this up at our meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs?
No.
I mean, we did or didn't?
No, we didn't.
And is that the right ministry to write to?
Yes, as well as Minister of Finance and Minister of Environment.
Yeah, so do we want to bring this up at our UBCM meetings and follow it up with a letter after that?
I think a letter now would be appropriate, because that's what lots of other municipalities are doing right now. So we've become part of that cluster. Then we could refer to that at our UBCM meetings.
Give them some more ammo, then they can announce it at UBCM.
Yeah, right.
Have you drafted something that you think would work?
I think so. So that council send a letter to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs requesting that the Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program be replaced by another program of similar or greater impact on a permanent basis.
Okay, how does that ring with everybody if we get all the addressees in there?
Do we need to add the other two ministries?
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
So Ministry of Finance and Environment?
Yep.
Yes.
And David, are you okay with the word permanent, or do you want to change it to regular?
Permanent's fine.
Okay.
And it's the minister, not the ministry.
Yes. You happy, Hope?
Got it.
Okay, thanks. I'll move that.
Second it.
Thank you. And any further discussion? I don't see anybody. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move down to new business. It's Bowen Island to host the 2021 House Sound Community Forum. Liam Edwards, CAO. Over to you, Liam. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So I understand that Bowen hosted a House Sound Forum in the not so distant past, and that we were actually scheduled to host it last year. However, due to COVID, it was canceled, understandably. And that this year, Whistler was scheduled to host the forum. However, the executive director reached out to us to request if we would host the forum this year, in particular because the pending a final approval of House Sound being designated as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. And the idea being that it would be great to host the forum within the sound, like right in the sound, which, you know, I think sounds wonderful. And so we did, you know, express at a staff level that we would be interested in doing that, and Hope connected with Ruth about availability also of the it's
Cateshill
Cateshill Chapel, which is available for the proposed date. And so we've put a tentative hold on that pending approval here. And so, yeah, we're just bringing it forward because we think it'd be excellent to host it here for that big occasion. Yeah.
Right on. Thanks, Liam. You think Cateshill's big enough? Eh?
We've held it there before.
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
How many years ago and how many people were there? But that's the
It was
lot of people
about
were coming.
2015, I think, 20 somewhere in there.
Yeah, so it was a while ago. I just remember the ones I went to that were in down at the at that big place. Where was it? Was it on Anvil or one of the
Furcombe and Nelson, those places. Yeah.
That was a huge place, but anyway, that's good. If we can't go there, we can always go to the other one down at Point. I think we're going to be able to do in person live. I would like to think so, but I think we should carry on as if we're going to. Anyway, those would be my only comments. Anybody else? Sue Ellen.
Yep, just that I'm in support of this, and I was part of the earlier discussion with Ruth, as was Maureen, I think, and we have some creative ideas about other things to include in it as well, but I'd like to make the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, whereas, therefore be it resolved that council support hosting the 2021 Fall How Sound Community Forum to be held Friday, October 22nd, 2021, and that the budget provision of $3,000 from 2020 be used to cover the cost of the event. Because they have 2 a year, and so this would be the fall one.
Before it gets seconded, is Raj still here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did we carry forward $3,000 from the 2020 budget?
We didn't, and I don't think your recommendation needs to include a funding source. Given the cost of what it would be to host it, we should be able to fund that from within our existing 2021 budget.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
That would be great. I'll just strike the last part of that then, because I did notice that it is in our island plan. We do say the outcome, this is goal B2, that Bowen Island has hosted a House Sound Community Forum before January 2022.
I might just add to that, in case at the end of the year we do find that we're in a crunch for funding, we can request that it be funded through the council strategic initiatives provision, because that is the 50,000 is unallocated. But for now, I believe we can do it within our existing budget.
Awesome.
Nobody's been going to any conferences in person, so.
Yeah.
All right. So, sorry, was that moved and seconded?
We need a seconder on that.
Okay.
Friendly amendment.
Sue Ellen? Okay, thanks.
I moved it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and David on the second. So, any further discussion on this? Okay, I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye. All right, that's great. Thank you. That's terrific. Something to look forward to. Okay, we're going to 11.2, which is CAO update. Over to Liam Edwards.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Well, I want to echo earlier comments about our CFO, Raj.
Yeah.
So just wanted to take this chance to say thank you again, Raj. Gonna miss you. It's only been here a year, but it's been great. You've been a tremendous support to me and the entire team and council as well, very much so, and to the whole community. So thanks so much.
Here.
Look forward to visiting you.
When you guys are on the Big Island, come visit. My cell phone is going to stay the same.
All right.
Okay.
Take you up on that.
So I also wanted to bring up, there may be some discussion later in committee updates, so I don't want to steal anything there, but I did want to just bring up the Islands Trust Policy Statement review. And just to let you know that staff are watching and paying keen attention to it as well. And that in terms of what we're proposing for our workflow here is to now that there is a draft available, we're reviewing that. And if that first draft does go to first reading on July 8th and get passed, then we'll dive in quite deep to do a review to look at any of the items that have any kind of real relevance to Bowen Island municipality, and then report back to council after the August break. There should be ample time between first and second reading to be able to do that review and report back to council with any concerns to then bring up to the trust. So I just wanted to let council know that we're keenly aware and paying close attention to that. And then touching base on the return to face-to-face meetings, this isn't a formal agenda item, but it was brought up at the beginning of the meeting tonight, so I thought I would touch on it. The plan that we're moving towards is moving back into council chambers in September. We're wanting to go take a cautious approach to hosting council meetings face-to-face and get through the next two steps of the reopening plan. One of the challenges that we're going to be faced, not just at the municipality, but as a community as a whole, is as we move through these next steps, things like mask wearing becomes optional. And for us, a decision that I've made at the municipality is that we're going to continue with mask wearing until we are really fully, truly in the clear. So I doubt we would be removing masks until the fall at the earliest. And similarly, we're going to keep most of our COVID safety protocols in place at the hall until the fall at the earliest. And so it's, while the provisions that are currently in place also do say that if we were to hold a public event in person, that masks would be mandatory, we would still be wanting masks. I still do feel that our municipal hall is pretty small, and it would not be a very good venue for hosting any kind of a large venue, especially for any kind of open house that could attract a large number of people. It could become very difficult to manage a large number of people in our small space. It's possible we could use a larger facility, a larger room in some way, shape, or form that way. But however, we're not really there in planning stages for that. I did also want to say that we had there's a relation to this meeting that we had recently with the Minister of Attorney General and Housing, Minister responsible for Housing, Minister David Eby, and Minister Osborne, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. It was a standard meeting of them providing updates to all mayors and chairs about how things are tracking with COVID and other issues. It was a really good meeting about some of the housing programs that are available, and we may have some opportunity to have a one-on-one meeting with Minister Eby at UBCM. We'll be putting in a request for that to get some more information. But both ministers were really encouraging the continued use of electronic meetings or some form of hybrid. Minister Eby in particular said that, he never attends council meetings, but because of the electronic availability that he's actually able to. And I don't know how many times I've seen a young mother with little children at our Zoom meetings clamoring all over them, and we wouldn't have that in a live in-person meeting. And so what we're wanting to do is figure out the technology so that we can have a hybrid situation. We tried that a couple of times. It didn't work. We applied for grant funding to help us with the cost of the technology, but we've not heard back on that grant funding. And so I don't want to wait much longer for the word on that grant program, because they would like us to be ready for September to have a hybrid where we can have council in the chambers and we can have staff or delegates still coming in through Zoom. And so we can accommodate both needs. Yeah. And so we'll be probably moving forward with exploring that technology needs regardless of the grant funding. So that's my update on the face-to-face and a couple other things. And if council also, we haven't really done this with CAO updates before, but this also might be a good time for if council had any questions that they had on those issues or others that they might want to ask. It may be a good opportunity to field things.
Yeah, thanks, Liam. It looks like we got a room full here. Sue Ellen, you had your hand up from the last time, or?
Sorry.
Okay, Rob.
Yeah, thanks, Liam. And I think September is probably a good timeline. It gives us a bit of time to prepare properly. It was a bit difficult right at the start there with the hybrid meetings. And especially at the front, you know, looking at maybe the feasibility of using different spaces, like I'm thinking the gymnasium and the school. I know I've been on the Vancouver School Board and we did that for a bit, and it is a bit tricky because, you know, when you're changing locations, people don't know a lot of times where you're at, and staff have to all get there and set up and whatnot. And sometimes maybe less contentious meetings we can have at city at the municipal hall. But if we know there's going to be big groups coming, we can maybe look at using the gymnasium. But I'm glad we're looking at this because I do think we're missing quite a bit by being solely on Zoom. So I'm really looking forward to that face-to-face interaction again. Thanks.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, Rob. Maureen?
My question, Liam, has to do with the MRDT. Robyn mentioned it in passing in her comments at the start of the meeting. Where we left that off was that it was sort of set aside, given that residential guest accommodation weren't going to be operating during COVID. But I was wondering if that work could begin to be reactivated, because the way the tax is set up, if I remember correctly, 50% of any revenue would be going to affordable housing, which could potentially support BIRCH.
Yes, Councillor Nicholson, I think that work could be reinstated, and I would need to touch base with Jody at Bowen Tourism because I believe that was work that she would be spearheading, and that it was, when I last asked her about it, the notion was that either we weren't quite ready to go back out and ask again, or that there was no desire to do that.
Yeah, I think Emma was working on that file for the municipality. So maybe starting with Emma and then moving to Jody.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Maureen. David?
Can somebody remind me what MRDT is? I kind of know.
Municipal Regional District Tax, but it's basically a hotel tax.
Yeah. David, sorry.
Thank you, Gary. So I just wanted to, well, one thing, my internet, I keep getting signs that my internet is unstable.
Okay.
Right now.
Yeah.
I did stop my video, just keep going.
Yeah.
Sure, that's
I just
good.
wanted to support Liam's point about, about the hybrid for the various reasons. It's a cautionary approach, but also the advantages of it, as Liam suggested. Back when we tried our hybrid and we didn't have the technology right, I was at a board meeting and I spoke to some of the other mayors about it, and but they were from bigger outfits, and yeah, they had the technology and they had it so it would work. And so I certainly think we should do that because it would be a real advantage for us. So thank you, Liam, and yeah, don't just wait for the grant. I think we need to move forward if we're to be ready for September. I mean, we're almost there already.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. Thank you, David. Allison?
I would wait for the grant because we need the money to pay for it, and it's not a cheap thing. And as I mentioned earlier, TransLink has decided, because of trying to accommodate the public and that kind of thing, that they're going to carry on with Zoom meetings until maybe till December, because you need space for the public.
We need more space than we had before. The beauty of a hybrid is you can have.
Well, that's right. So I'm
40
saying
minutes, 40 members
if
of
we
the
have the
public.
hybrid, but I would not support a hybrid if you're suggesting we spend it without waiting to see if we get the grant.
Where would we source that money from?
Exactly. We need the grant.
Out of all the money that we didn't spend going to meetings?
We just spent that on something else.
What about the money that the province gave us to deal with COVID issues?
There are numerous sources that we could tap into, and in particular, the restart funding would be a really good source that you could utilize for this. We don't have a firm cost estimate, but we had applied for $60,000. I think that is a very healthy budget for this, and so we could tap into that restart funding. It's a more than eligible cost.
That's great. I saw that in the annual report, or in the financial Sophie, was that what it's called? Financial information anyway, and it looked like there was a good amount of COVID funding left over.
That was an info statement, a note to the financial statements.
I read it, and there was money there, and it had COVID, and I think we need to get back into meetings, and I support the hybrid idea. And I don't know if you need a motion from us, Liam, or do you just go ahead with that?
Oh, I guess, I'm not sure I can just put a motion on the table. I've not done that in my tenure here, so I don't know if that's something.
And you're purchasing.
You get hope to do it.
Would the motion be something that council supports staff using the COVID restart funds to upgrade the technology in council chambers to accommodate hybrid meetings?
A hybrid operation, yeah.
I'll move that.
I don't even know what I just said, but I'll try to write that down now.
Well done, Hope.
Yeah.
I have another question.
On the fly. Go ahead, Allison.
When would we anticipate hearing about the grant we've applied for?
Well, they already opened, so there were 2 rounds of intakes, and they opened up the second intake, but I haven't heard any announcement from the first round. And so it was through this community support program. I can't remember the exact name.
And that's not the one we're applying for, so Daniel can do all his online permitting and everything.
Different. So this one is more at a national level, and it's helping communities respond and be more effective with engaging with their communities because of COVID. The program that Daniel is applying for is through the province. It's through this development approval streamlining program, and so separate programs. But I would have thought we would have, there would have been an announcement for the first round. We applied to the first round. We didn't hear anything. We applied to the second round. We still haven't heard anything from that either.
Because the other problem is I'd hate to spend the money and then all of a sudden find out we got the grant and have to say goodbye because we've already done it.
I think Raj is going to.
I was just going to say, we could just proceed with a council resolution authorizing staff to move forward with the technology improvements without identifying a funding source. And that would leave us open. And then down the road, if it's needed that if it's required that we need to tap into the COVID restart funding, we can propose that as part of a financial plan amendment. But I think we should be able to proceed within the current financial plan, approved financial plan spending guidelines with it, if council were to approve that.
So you mean like getting quotes and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. We just have.
I like that idea. I like that idea. So,
my worry is that if we wait for the grant, September will be upon us and we won't be ready. And, you know, we may be successful, which would be wonderful, but you know, there'll be a further delay to be able to do the hybrid model. But if we're not successful, well, then we've moved forward and we're ahead of the game.
So with that hybrid model, we mean some members of the public could be present, but others not?
Yeah,
that's right.
Same with council also. You know, if it wasn't feeling good, they could just zoom in for the council.
And same with staff too. And so
staff,
could more easily show up for their presentation more easily through Zoom than necessarily having to be there all evening.
Yeah.
And that would be transferable to our new council chambers if they were to be built in the new community hall.
When they're built, not if.
When, yeah.
I'll just clarify too that the grant that I applied for and the grant that Daniel applied for, both of us included a component for the website redevelopment for the e-commerce options, just because we weren't sure who was going to get what. So the council chambers upgrades are more like 42,000 and the remainder was for the website upgrades. And so if we need to use the COVID reserve funds, it's a reasonably small amount of money that would be required for that.
Oh, okay.
I applied back in April, so I'm not super hopeful at this stage.
No, that's a long time.
That's early for expecting a response based on past history.
Well, it did say that it was going to be a quick turnaround, so.
Yeah, the intention was to spend the money in this year.
Well, if it's federal program and their rumors are right about a federal election, they're going to start announcing the gifts.
Yeah, these are coming out.
Yeah, I believe it's like a program that's run through a community foundation. That was the funds have already flowed from the federal treasury to the foundation, and the National Community Foundation that is operating the program.
Uh-oh.
So what does our motion say now?
Thanks.
Do we want to strike the part about using the COVID restart funds?
Yes.
Yeah, just draw it.
So that council support staff advancing upgrades to the technology in council chambers to accommodate hybrid meetings.
Yeah, pure and simple. Also, you got first from Sue Ellen, second from me. Now, is there any further discussion? I don't see any. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's fantastic. Yeah. Okay, back to you, Liam. How are you doing there?
That's it for my update.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to Metro Vancouver Director David Hawking. Update to council on Metro Vancouver business.
Thank you, Gary. Just a couple of things, and they're related. So everyone remembers that a couple of weeks ago, we had a presentation on the new Metro Vancouver 2050 regional growth strategy, or the update of their growth strategy. And the presentation was about process, how this was being done and what's happening next. Well, what happened next was at the last board meeting, the new draft of Metro Vancouver 2050 was presented, along with a bunch of graphs and so on, or images. And so in terms of this is the next phase of the process. We can now ask Metro Vancouver staff to come and present sometime in the fall, perhaps, Metro Vancouver 2050, so that we can get a sense of what it is and offer our comments. But one of the interesting things, you may remember that at the end of the meeting, General Manager McNell talked about how, because Bowen does not have to comply with the zoning of the regional growth strategy of Metro Vancouver 2040 or 2050, our zones are blank on the map. We're a white spot, an empty spot on the map. And you remember we had a bit of a discussion about it, and I certainly am not particularly comfortable about that. Well, one thing that after that, another item on the agenda was a regional ecosystems connectivity study, which looked at how well our ecosystems within the region are properly connected for species to be able to move between them and thrive properly. And then what there is, every municipality is then presented with, or has a map that shows to what extent is their the land within their community important for this. And the Bowen map, now, Allison, I'm going to apologize. Yes, I can't send you the direct link. I can send you to page 308 of 581 of the board agenda. But have a look at page 308 if you're interested, because there's a map of Bowen Island, and it shows that most of Bowen Island is categorized as high connectivity, high importance of connectivity. So remember that Bowen is conservation and recreation lands, as that's what it sits at right now, mostly. And so clearly then, since we're the very next report shows that we are important from a conservation perspective, it's another reason why I feel that, you know, we are, for the region, whether we have to comply or not, we are important from both a connectivity, from a conservation perspective and a recreation perspective. Anyway, that's, you know, I invite everyone to have a look at that page 308 of 581. It's an interesting map, but that's what happened at the last Metro Vancouver board meeting. Thank you, Gary.
All right, thank you, David. And we're going to move on to 11.4, protecting old growth forests on Bowen. Councillor and Trustee Fast.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I put this in here because in our previous council meeting information items, there was a letter from the District of Tofino to the Minister of Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development about old growth and asking them to do the things that are in the recommendation that's in front of you on the agenda. So there was also some questions from members of council as to what was old growth, where was it on Bowen, and those kinds of things. So I had asked the questions of Kate Emmings, who's the manager of the Islands Trust Conservancy, to get confirmation about those answers. And so I wanted to present them to council. And then having read the letter from Tofino and having been looking in our island plan where that same section, page 12, I think it is here. No, 15, B2, one of them is continue to oppose industrial scale logging on Crown lands, and a bunch of other ones in here about protecting ecosystems. I wondered if council would wish to send a letter, because if we send a letter like Tofino's, it supports our position on not wanting industrial scale logging on Crown land. And if we stay silent, it sends an opposite message, I think. Anyway, so I wondered what council thought. And even if it doesn't, it's just an idea. So I put it forward.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. Any discussion? Okay. Just lost the page here. Could you bring that map up? Was that map on there? I've lost it.
It had links. It didn't.
The trust map, yeah.
Any maps. It had links to different maps, and these are in the Islands Trust website. I didn't make it a huge report, but there's, you know, it's a relatively small amount of old growth, and however, that makes it worth protecting, in my view, and all the mature forests too. But the point is, do we want to write this letter encouraging the minister to take all those old growth recommendations from that committee? And it's in the news right now. Squamish Nation has also said that they want a moratorium on old growth logging on their map that has some gold stars on it, that I don't know if I put that link in there either. But you can see.
Councillor Fast, is this the map that Mayor Andrew was?
I think it may be. This is the one that I think Councillor Morse put this one first.
Yeah, it's up here now. I've got it. Yeah. So the fun thing about that is it said the old growth is all in Crown land, which isn't true.
No, but it's the ministry's objectives are only to do with Crown land. Nothing to do with private land.
Okay.
That's those brown patches.
These, yeah.
Yeah, the two I see is there's one down at Seymour Bay, which is private.
Yeah.
And is the what's the name sister's place, Ross Beatty's, and the buildings are also in there.
Well, this is strictly to do with Crown land.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the flavor out there? What's everybody think? I mean, I don't mind sending a letter out.
I'm good with it too.
Yeah. I agree. I put my hand up just to say I like what Sue Ellen is proposing here and offer my support.
Great. And
Can I just, I sent around the news release from the province, which sets out sort of, they've started to deal with some of them and their process, and they're going to make everything scientific based. So I was wondering if we would be better to bring this up when we have our meeting with the minister at UBCM, given that they're acting on the resolutions rather than a blanket letter saying act on the resolutions, and they've already sent out a news release saying we've already acted on this one and this one.
That's a really good point, and thank you for sending that that email around. The thing is that the recommendations that they're acting on are just a couple of them, and they're small. And so far, and I believe that it's people asking for the recommendations to be undertaken is why they're maybe making those announcements. So I thought we could encourage them. So I'll make the motion that council requests Mayor Ander to write to the Minister of Forest Lands, Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development, requesting the expedient and resourced implementation of the 14 recommendations in the report titled "A Strategic Review of how British Columbia manages for old growth forests within its ancient ecosystems," written by registered professional foresters Gary Merkel and Al Gorley.
So I'll second that.
Was that a report that was actually requested and commissioned by the province?
Yes.
Because maybe were you quoting word for word from Tofino's letter?
Almost exactly.
I'm just wondering about the report commissioned by the province entitled, just to, it's not that we're trying to, for the uneducated that haven't read it and don't know what the report's all about, that it's not an outsider's report to the province. It's a report the province commissioned.
That's totally fine with me. I mean, the beginning of the report begins, "Dear Minister." So it's clearly done for the ministry. And the report is addressed to Doug Donaldson, Minister at the time. So
But
I'd
if
be
people
fine.
don't open up the front page of the report, they have no idea that the province commissioned it.
I am happy. Where did you want to put that amendment?
Implementation of the 14 recommendations in the report commissioned by the province entitled.
Okay. Thank you. Hope if you could catch that, that would be great. Thank you. That's fine, I think.
Could I also, could I suggest one change, Sue Ellen? And it goes to the point that some of this work is underway already, where you state and rural development requesting the, etc. Could we change requesting to supporting?
Sure.
Which isn't as directive, and it's what we're actually doing. We're supporting them.
That would be fine with me. I mean, honestly, I wrote this a week and a half ago, and some announcements have come out since then, so I'm happy with that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we have first and a second. Any further discussion, Allison?
No.
Ask the question, all in favor, aye? Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody. Okay, so Island Trust Municipal Trustees Fast and Kale re-update to Council on Islands Trust business.
Yeah, I'm happy to go. I'm glad Liam has mentioned the fact that you've got the copy of the new Islands Trust policy statement and you'll be looking at it. The key dates for next week are the open house on Wednesday the 7th and the actual trustees meeting on Thursday the 8th. Yeah. The policy statement I've had it, I think, probably not for very long. Call me a liar for a day or two, but about a week. And it's caused a considerable amount of discussion and probably fair to say controversy. I just added up before our meeting started this afternoon. I have exactly 50 letters written to trustees from people from all over, from many, many different islands. And there's a couple of themes attached to it, which I can come to in a minute. There are some real concerns over the new Islands Trust policy statement. And it is fair to say that this is not just a revision, but a very much a new mandate and priorities. And it won't be a surprise to anyone that we're looking through the lens of reconciliation, looking through the lens of climate change, and update regarding affordable housing to ensure the document gives affordable housing greater profile. That is an area of great division. There are, I'm prepared to say, many trustees. I've been on the phone to many trustees this morning. There are many trustees who feel that Islands Trust should not be being involved in the area of affordable housing, and that will be a subject of discussion. So I'm trying not to express an opinion here. I'm just trying to tell you what will and will not be be significant. There will also be incredible amount of discussion on the subject of public consultation. The Islands Trust believes it has gone through an exhaustive or very considerable process of a public consultation, and fair enough, that's their opinion. The opinion, as per the majority of the 50 letters that I've received, take a very alternate point of view, and they do not, they're completely in the dark. They know nothing about this, and they're just big question mark. What is this? What is this public consultation? So there's going to be a division of opinions but on the whole subject of public consultation. There is some interesting language there. The new policy statement lacks the customary schedule of definitions and introduces some new and key phrases. For example, human-centric and settler-centric planning paradigms, total social science. These are not actually defined, whereas the existing policy is very clear in its labeled definitions. This is a rather esoteric discussion, but it is one which certainly the ones with a more legalistic mind frame have picked up on. The more legalistic frame of thought has also picked up on the preamble. Liam, when you are reviewing, what I would ask you to do, look carefully at the preamble to the policy. Now, this has been changed from being a descriptive introduction to an embodied component of the actual legislation. Legislative preambles are usually meant to be signposts pointing to a better future. They're meant to be inspirational. They can contain grand assertions without being bogged down in providing proofs, etc. And they contain words and phrases not bound by detailed definitions. They should have a sort of sense of purpose and of place. And they can do this precisely because they are not part of the actual legislation. What has been discussed is that the new draft policy has buried the preamble within the actual legislation, which I will ask you to look at. For some people, this is foisting a kind of governance sleight of hand on its constituents, which some people regard as quite unconscionable. The new policy contains substantial scope of control, and you will soon discover as you read through. Two of the most controversial is that when I when I sit on the Trust Programs Committee, and for the last year or so, we've been attending frequent meetings. When I looked at this last draft, I found, and like others, totally surprised, some very definite and absolute wording on the subject of docks, desalination. And I thought, where did that come? Because for all the meetings I've attended, docks haven't been discussed. Desalination hasn't been discussed. Yet in this draft, which some would wish to go to first reading, there is some quite draconian and very definite language on that subject. So that as well will be a considerable cause for discussion. And I know will I've been assured by a couple of trustees that they will certainly not vote for it to go on to first reading. There are 26 trustees, by the way, so I'm talking about a couple, because where did this come from? So the Trust Programs Committee in its last meeting, two interesting motions. First motion was that everything in red, and in red pertains to housing, should be scrubbed from the trust policy statement. Now, there were 10 people at that meeting. 5 agreed that it should, and 5 agreed that, no, that was too sweeping and we can't agree to that. Now, it didn't pass because 5 and 5 requires a majority to pass, but it was very interesting to see the split of opinions on this whole subject of housing. Islands Trust in itself, if they wish to get embroiled on this subject, a lot of wise trustees, I think, are expressing concern. The other motion that was tabled was just a very blunt that we will not refer this for first reading. 5 trustees voted to agree with that, and 5 voted against it. So whatever does or doesn't happen on the 7th with the public meeting and on the 8th with the trustees meeting, we are going to have, if we are going to get unanimity, and not just one extra vote wins the day and one less loses the day and gets some far greater consensus. We have a huge amount of work to do on this document. Normally, wise counsel says that if you have a huge amount of work to do, which suggests considerable changes, it is far better to receive a document for information, discuss, clarify, and then pass it over to first reading. So whether it is accepted for first reading or not remains to be seen, but it won't be an easy passage because there isn't agreement on several key points. And I will let Councillor Fast clarify anything I've said, whether she agrees or disagrees.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Sue Ellen?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, as usual, I take a different approach. And as you may have gathered, Islands Trust trustees come from different directions too, because that's what, in a democracy, citizens elect different trustees with different points of view. And I think that's a good thing, vigorous debate. The draft, what we want to do, or what I'm on executive committee, and I'm one of the ones who voted to move this forward to Trust Council. So on the 8th, they will vote on whether or not to send it to first reading. And I did circulate to Council a sheet about what it was all about and with the links and things like that and how it related to Bowen. Partly, I would like it to pass first reading so that we have a draft that we can refer out to Bowen Island Municipality and the different regional districts and the province and all the other people that we're going to refer it out to. So we'll see what happens. I think there's the controversy for me is interesting, and maybe it'll help us get more people engaged in the process. It was stimulated, I think, by an anonymous mailing that hit many islands at the same time. And that's one you may have seen in your mailbox. It came, I think, to me on the 24th. And so that seems to have carried a lot of the concerns that Trustee Kale is talking about. But that's controversy, and it's not a bad thing when you're having a good, vigorous discussion about a document which is like our OCP. It's kind of the OCP for all of the islands, which is 25 years since it was reviewed. So I won't go into a whole long thing here, except to refer you to my email that I sent out June 27th, and to answer any questions about the public input that went into the draft, or the public input that's yet to come, or how can I help?
Okay, thank you, Sue Ellen. Go to Liam first.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to follow up on a comment from Councillor Fast about the anonymous mailing. I certainly hope it doesn't become a new standard and norm of practice. I find it quite frustrating and concerning. And when it happened here on Bowen, I did check in with the post mistress, and they did confirm that in fact they shouldn't be doing that. And so it was concerning to see it happen again so soon after, although I do know that our postmistress did retire very recently. So maybe we just need to talk with the new folks at the post office. Yeah, so just wanted to follow up to that I do find these anonymous mail-outs, blanket mail-outs to be frustrating. So.
Yeah.
Was that only on Bowen, or was that in all the trusts?
No, Salt Spring, Denman, Theta,
Okay.
I think all the major islands received it around the same time.
Yeah.
And by the way, I received a call from the postmistress expressing her apologies and saying that it shouldn't have happened. So they're supposed to look for who's paying for it, who's actually signing it, and this one doesn't have that information.
Okay, thank you. Liam, is that it?
Thank you.
Thank you. Allison?
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say I've had some emails and phone calls from friends who live on some of the other islands, basically saying, what is going on? I went through what we heard in the consultation and whatever, and I was quite surprised to see some of the sections that were in there, which I could find no reference to them even being suggested at a public meeting or an information item. So if it's that divided, then I think it should have, Michael's process, but I guess I'll have to speak in the open house on the 7th.
You're invited.
Yes, I hope.
But the timing is the pits. Yeah.
Well, we can serve cookies remotely.
Just so people know what we're talking about, if anybody's watching, this is the policy statement directives only checklist, and you've seen this applied attached to different OCP amendments, and it's these pages that the planning staff use to check that anything we pass on Bowen is not opposed to that it's in line with the policy statement. So this is it's just this for Bowen. But anyway, any more questions?
Maureen?
The email you sent to us, Sue Ellen, was quite helpful, just in pointing people in various directions and providing a bit of context. I'm wondering if some version of this information could be more broadly distributed. As far as I'm aware, it came to Council Internal, and I think you may have sent it to some Islanders.
Yes, I sent it to some people who usually ask me questions, and so I've sent an email out, much the same information that's on the sheet, and but I believe that I know that the Islands Trust is preparing a mass mailing in response to the anonymous one. So there will be more mail, only this time actually from the Islands Trust, going to people's mailboxes across the Islands Trust area.
Okay, thank you. That addresses my concern.
Okay. Thanks, Maureen. All right, so let's move on to Councillor Nicholson, update to Council on Metro Vancouver Regional Parks Committee.
Yeah, Metro Parks is continuing on its park acquisition program. Purchased another piece of land, publicly announced now. There's a small piece, but an important piece in Kanaka Park. And for those who aren't familiar with that park, it's huge. It has 1,122 acres. I just took a look. So they're building a very big park. And that's really all from the open meeting. I'll just point you all in the direction of the letter that is in our current agenda package to Metro, following up on the visit that they made to Bowen. It's item 12.1 C, letter between Liam and Jeff Fitzpatrick, requesting some specific forms of engagement on the JB's Orchard project. And also, just a heads up, there will be an article in tomorrow's Undercurrent, with an interview with Jeff Fitzpatrick and talking about the demolition of Cottage 12.
That's good.
Yeah, so nothing more to report.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. Councillor Alison Morse, update to Council on TransLink Mayor's Council meetings.
We had a very, very short public meeting on the 24th, and basically just an update on where they're at, a little bit on there's the 10-year vision, the Mayor's Council 10-year vision, and where we're at with implementing that, what's left to be done, and unfortunately it was an on-table presentation PowerPoint, and I haven't got it. So I can't, and my mind has gone right out. But, and we're also waiting to hear more details with the funding on the Surrey-Langley SkyTrain extension that was promised by the province during the election. And they're going ahead with the under 12 free fares for that. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll be doing Zoom meetings up until December. So that's it. More
okay,
later.
thanks, Alison. So that sort of wraps up 11.8. It was moved to a closed meeting. The recommendation is council move to a closed meeting immediately following the regular council. Discuss items pursuant to section 90-1 A, G, I, and J of the community charter. I'll move that. Looking for a second. Thank you, Michael. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. And the information items are in place. We'll take it right down to question period. Oh, is that for you, Rob? Are you looking? Okay. And if there's no questions, we will adjourn this meeting and go to the closed meeting. Does everybody need 5 minutes or so?
You're welcome.
How about 8:50?
Okay.
That's 7 minutes.
And do we come back
I know.
this meeting, Hope, or the other one that's in the calendar?
The other one.
Calendar.
Just confirming. Great.
Okay, thank you. See you all soon.